Hello there, and thanks for joining us again on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Got a great program for you today, and I want you to really kind of pay attention as we look at particularly younger children today in the home and parenting younger children and dealing with some of the very unique challenges, I guess you might call, that they present us as parents. And our guest today is an expert in child development, Eric Lindberg from Fresno Pacific University, and teaches in the university there in the area of child development. So he's going to share with us some of his thinking and some of the research and some of the studies and what we've been found about how best to raise particularly young children in our homes and in our families. But before we start today, I have a little quote for you that I want you to pick up, and we'll just put this into perspective. And then, Eric, you may want to comment about this.
Sure.
As we pick it up from you. The character of a child's tomorrow, the character of a child tomorrow, is shaped by what he learns from us today. Now, maybe I can just change that just a little bit by saying this. Your child tomorrow, the character of your child tomorrow will be shaped how you parent your child today. Eric, what does that ring to you? What does that say to you? You're a child development expert, so what does that say to you?
That says, I've been using this saying for a long time. Create the past you want tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
By the decisions you make today.
Create your path.
Create your past. Your past. So you go down the path, you make the choices, and 5 years from now you want to look back and say, I made good choices. Mm-hmm. And so I teach that to children and adults alike.
And you want your kids to walk that path.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the path you want them to walk.
Absolutely.
Because you walked it first.
Yes.
And that kind of reminds you of another old quote. You know, you can't expect your children to walk the path that you didn't walk.
Right.
I mean, there's a quote of something of that nature.
Exactly.
And so we as parents set the pace.
Absolutely.
Now, in the area of child development, you obviously had your own personal experiences.
Yes.
You know, you were raised in a home that, you know, maybe they did everything right, everything perfect, or maybe not quite so much.
Not quite so
What
much.
was it like at home? How were you raised?
I was raised in
Kind of brings you to that whole point about, you know, you get into child development.
Yep. I was the baby of 4
Yeah.
kids. My mom and dad stayed together until they were married for about 41 years, and then my mom passed away. But while I was young, while I was being raised, we had a strong faith home, which in some cases doesn't matter. My brothers took another path, mm-hmm. and had some trouble, some real troubles during their life. My sister is the oldest, and me, we chose to pretty much go on the straight and narrow.
Follow your parents.
Follow my parents.
To walk the path your parents walked.
My dad especially.
Oh, that's interesting.
My dad was an example of a godly man.
That's very important.
Yeah. And
there are so many kids today raised in homes, phantom father.
Absolutely.
Where is he?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so my mom was a full-blooded Russian Jew when they met, of course, all her life. And about 2 years after she had me, she converted to Christianity.
I see.
And her family, of course, had nothing to do with her for a while. But then they acquiesced. Many of them didn't convert, but some did. My dad decided that he would spread Jesus everywhere he could. So he gave us the example by taking us and having us as kids pass out tracts at the mall until we got kicked out.
Uh-huh.
And then he would have us go knock on doors and give them tracts.
The little literature
the
that
path to,
you wanted them to read.
Exactly,
Yeah, sure.
the 4 spiritual laws. And so I would do that. I would memorize verses and the books of the Bible. Went to a Christian school, not in elementary school, but in junior high and high school. But my dad was reading his Bible every single morning before he went to work, and that was usually 4 or 5 o'clock. And sometimes I'd get up and I would see this, and it would impress me that he was so consistent about that. Never said anything to him about it, but to this day he still does that. He's 90 years old.
I see.
And so I get to spend time with him about every other.
He's probably read the Bible through.
Oh, many
times.
times. Yeah, yeah. And so he was the great generation. He was born in 1929, and so he was the generation that went and fought in World War II, and
I see. Sure.
And those in those days back
so
then.
So your shaping of as a man, as a person, was largely your father's influence.
Yes.
I mean, mother, obviously.
Yeah.
But he played a very significant role in your life.
Yes, he did. He didn't know it.
He didn't know that.
He didn't. He thought I was a mama's boy. And I was.
So he was going to see that didn't get carried through.
Right.
He was going to counter that in some way, so he came on strong.
Yeah. So he spent a lot of time with me. After about 10 years old, he would take me to my trumpet lessons, and we'd have a regular week date that we would go out.
How did that shape you and your own thinking about raising children? Here you are teaching, child development. I mean, do you base a lot of your thinking on the fact that a father is the critical keystone person in a family?
Absolutely, because we're finding so often now a very large percentage of homes are single parent, usually mom homes.
Yes.
Father's gone.
Yes.
My father was absent a lot of the time because he worked from 5 o'clock in the morning until 6 or 7 at night. He'd come home and he'd make dinner for the family, and my mom would be there.
But when he was home, he was home.
But when he was home, he was home.
Mm-hmm.
And he even had a craft and Bible class for me and my friends at home. And so he would do a devotional, and we'd handwork leather because he was a leather master.
I see.
And so I have fond memories of being raised, and then I had some hiccups because of my brothers and seeing them get in trouble a lot, and remembering what they did to get in trouble and noticing what not to do.
So you don't follow that path.
Right.
There's a considerable amount of research showing that 70% of the children raised in homes without a father are in prison.
Yes.
And do not do well in school.
Yes.
Do not do well socially.
That's correct.
Do not do well academically.
Right. And feel more comfortable in prison. Because in prison they have a father.
That's right.
And that's usually the
guard
or the warden or whoever it is. But they've got a father now.
They'll find one that way.
That's right.
Or they go into gangs.
Yep.
Which then they get a father figure
That's
there
right.
because it's the older gang members that in charge.
Yep.
So, without a father, we have a culture.
Yes.
That just leads these kids into trouble.
Yes, when I'm teaching my class, I teach my class to adults. So when I'm teaching my class, I don't try and just single out the mothers because half my class, the moms are single moms.
Sure.
Because they're working adults.
Yeah. Oh, they do the best they can.
They do the best they can, and so I say they're mom and dad.
Yes.
And so here's what they have to do. Here's the role they have to fill as mom, and here's the role they have to fill as dad. And so I'm trying to give them those lessons because they're late to the party than I was, later to the party than I was, so they didn't get the upbringing that I did.
Yeah. A mother can't be a dad, I guess, in some ways.
Right.
Maybe she can fill in a little bit of the fathering kind of attitude or emotion.
It's hard.
But that's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do, and especially because a lot of times it brings on a confrontation.
Yeah.
And Xennials, Gen X's, and Millennials, they don't like confrontation. With their family, with their kids. So they just ignore. They get them in the Xbox and they leave them there, and that's their babysitter.
But we have a lot of people watching that are single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to do the best they can.
Yes.
So 2 or 3 things. What do you tell them?
Well,
what would you advise a single mother today? Just do the best you can, but do these 3 things and it'll help you.
Yes. Number 1 is consistency. You have to be consistent. Number 2 is if you lay down a rule, you got to make sure and do it. You got to follow through on the, let's call it a threat, but it's not meant to be a threat. Like if you do this again, this is going to be the consequence. You're going to be in your room for the rest of the night. And then when they do it again, and if they're if they're not in their room for the rest of the night, then they know that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Always.
So you got to take that rule and lay it down, but follow it yourself.
Yes, and be consistent.
Consistency.
Yeah, and don't let them into your private life. Don't let them into your dating life if you have one, at least for a while, because this guy may not work out. And you don't want them to experience a whole bunch of fatherly types that aren't going to be their father.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
That's good advice, because that happens a lot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Mothers sometimes want to bring in a man into her life.
That's natural.
And then right into the life of the children right away. And then,
yeah,
3 months later, that person's gone.
Yeah.
And now these kids are all mixed up. What is that all
confused.
about?
That's right.
That's total confusion.
Yeah, and it's hard on them. It's hard on their little psyches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you transitioned, as you got older, you went on to college.
Mm-hmm.
How did you choose child development then? I mean, how did that become your major?
Well, child development kind of chose me.
I see.
My wife Autumn she's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has a PhD, and she got her psychology degree. And so after I finished my bachelor's, I decided I wanted to do psychology as well.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
I thought she'd help me.
Probably would.
But she didn't.
I see.
No. Not at all, as a matter of fact. I had to do it all myself. And I managed with a pretty good GPA, too, for my master's, my graduate degree. But I was better for it that she didn't help me. She's a wonderful person. And now she has a thriving practice, and she also teaches at Fresno Pacific and in their seminary program of LMFTs, and she's a wonderful person.
We have a family today in America that's very different than what it was 25 years ago.
Oh, man, yeah.
And maybe, obviously, 25 years before that.
Right.
Think about with us a little bit of the changes that have taken place over time. I'm interested in that. So what the family was at one point in time and what it is now. I was a kid in the 40s, in the 50s. I was a kid then. The family at that time was very different than that child is today, or I would be today if I were a child.
Right.
What's happened?
Well, you and I are both baby boomers. I'm a very late baby boomer, 1962.
All right.
But there is a difference from then, is our parents weren't afraid of conflict. In fact, just the opposite. Our parents would lay down the law, and we'd get spankings, or we'd get in trouble, and we would have to, at school, we'd have to write sentences. We'd have to do like 200, 500 sentences. I will not.
I've written my sentences in life,
yeah,
by the way.
I've written my sentences in life, too. Or we'd have to stay in our rooms,
Yeah.
We'd be grounded from the TV. We didn't have games back then, video games. So I think that what's different then to today, number one, there were more fathers in the home. Okay? Not a large percentage, but a percentage. And today, there are few fathers in the home, and they don't like confrontation. And I'm not talking about confrontation with your neighbor. I'm not talking about confrontation about traffic or somebody that's done you wrong. I'm talking
road
about
rage, if you will.
Like road rage. I'm talking about confrontation with your child. They don't like the confrontation because they want the child to like them.
Yes.
Child goes away to daddy in 2 weeks and is going to be gone for a week. You want them to want to come back. So you don't punish. And the dad doesn't punish because he wants the child to come back too.
Sure.
So these kids are getting away with craziness.
That's an interesting point. When you think about that, is that parents don't really clamp down on a kid because they're afraid they're going to lose that child to the other parent. And so that competitiveness between parents really destroys our children.
It does, and the truth could not be farther. Because when you are consistent, children want boundaries. It's human nature.
They do.
They crave boundaries. You give them boundaries, they cling to you. So it's almost ironic because you don't want to yell at them. You don't want to follow through on punishment because you're afraid they're not going to want to be with you. But if you follow through and you're consistent, they'll want to be with you forever.
Sure.
I mean, and they'll refer back to it when they're adults.
Yeah. So a lot of times we really parent out of fear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really kind of creating this whole parenting struggle.
Yes, exactly.
And if you're afraid you're going to lose the child, afraid the child's going to choose one parent over the other, afraid that the child is going to turn against you, you're sunk as a parent.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's not going to work very well.
Yeah, you're done.
Say, let's take a break here.
Okay.
Now, when you come back, I want you to kind of elaborate on that a little bit further. A couple of the changes that have taken place over the last 50 years of parenting
and
family life. That idea of a strong parent is one, but there are got to be other ones as well. Let's pick up a couple now. So grab a cup of coffee and come on back in a minute or so, and we'll pick it up again.
The Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living in secured homes for elderly with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-297-9438 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010 and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net.
Pompe disease is a progressive, multisystemic, debilitation, and often fatal muscular disease. The United Pompe Foundation was formed to assist those affected by Pompe with the medical costs and other expenses that they may not be able to fully cover through their insurance. Visit UnitedPompe.com to learn more and to make a tax-deductible contribution to the United Pompe Foundation.
Okay, welcome back as we pick up our discussion with Eric Lindberg of Fresno Pacific University, child development specialist, teaches in the area of child development, and he's guiding us through the thought process of parenting from a kind of a child development point of view for particularly younger children in the home. And before we took a break, he was commenting about just the necessity of parents working together and not being in competition with each other, not being afraid to discipline a child. But what's the next point? What would you advise parents and educate parents on how this has shifted over time, over the last 50 years, if you will?
Yeah.
How have we changed as parenting?
Well, you have to remember that when your child grows up, if they've had a good foundation, chances are they're going to be okay, no matter how bad they are right now. And by bad, I mean maybe cheating once or twice in school, or pulling Sally's pigtail when in elementary school, or toilet papering a house when they're in high school. That's the bad I'm talking about. When they're adults, when they're in their 20s, they're going to be okay. And that's something that we have to keep reminding ourselves of, because it's natural for, and I teach it like this, during their life, here's the baseline of doing well, doing okay. And during their life, they have periods of this, going above and below the baseline, bad and good, bad and good. You lose your license when you're 16, that's a bad thing. And then you become involved in your church, and when you're 17, that's a good thing. And then, so by the time that you're, and I'm trying to do it in reverse here for the camera, by the time you're 23 to 30, the brain starts to slow down developing, because your brain keeps developing into your
25, 23,
And so they'll be okay. And they'll be okay without you. You got to remember that.
So there's a certain degree of hope,
yes,
a certain degree of faith,
yes,
a certain degree of confidence,
that's
a certain degree of expecting that the good will come out as a child gets older.
And that's something that we don't think about, because we're so tied up in the moment.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
we're worried about getting through the day.
We're worried about getting through the day, and we're worried about that child liking us. Okay, and they're worried about them being our best friend.
Too much. We're worried about them liking us too much.
Johnny is my best friend, and I'm so glad, because we're like this. We do everything together.
No, you don't parent that way.
Can't parent that way.
You don't parent that way.
Can't parent that way. And that's the difference. One of the differences between when we were younger, our parents were of the industrial age, and the great era, the great time, and during the war, before the war, and they had excellent examples of parents before them.
Oh yes,
right. So when our parents became parents to us, they were pretty good. I mean, in most cases, there's still, I have found, and I was shocked when I was doing research to find the percentage of homes that were still fatherless back in the baby boomer era.
Oh, back then,
there was a lot then, but there's
40%. Now it's closer to 50.
Now it's closer to 50.
But maybe about 40%. I mean, so it's still substantial.
Yes.
So on history, kids have been raised pretty much without a father.
Yes.
I mean, maybe the fathers in the past were not in the home, but they were connected to the kids. They visited, they kept in contact, they paid child support, they lived in the area, they stayed in the community. The kid had connection with the father, even though the family was divorced.
Right.
I think the difference today is when father leaves, he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah, he doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to just move on from his life.
That's unfortunate, isn't it?
It is very unfortunate.
But you said something a little while ago about you had an experience like that yourself. You parented kids when they were young, 30 years ago or whatever it might be?
Yeah, about 35 years ago.
35 years ago, and now you're parenting another set of younger kids.
My wife and I adopted.
How are you different over time? How have you changed?
Well,
you're the expert.
Yeah, let me tell you, it is a lot different. When I was 21, my wife and I at the time had a baby, and we divorced, separated about when she was 2.
I see.
So she never knows us together.
Yeah.
Okay, but I was the part-time dad all her life till she was an adult, and sometimes I say that her mom kind of turned her into my ex-daughter at times, and I really felt angry, and I felt alone, and I felt disappointed. And so when she would come over, and I'd have my day and my weekend with her, I would not want to punish her. It was only natural, because I didn't want her to be mad at me the whole time. I only had her for 2 days, for heaven's sakes.
It should be fun and games.
It should be fun and games. And then, my wife at the time, I was constantly doing this because they hated each other. And so it was a hard time bringing up a child then as a part-time dad.
On a part-time basis, too.
Yeah.
The child, you were a part-time dad, but she was a part-time child.
That's right.
Came and left out of your home.
Exactly.
And then when you were trying to keep 2 women at bay from each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, try and do that.
I mean, how you spend quality time with your child,
Right.
which is apparently what you were trying to do.
That's what I was trying to do. Or sometimes I was going to take her in the weekend, and then my daughter would call me up and say, "Mom's going to Disneyland this weekend. Can I go with her?" And well, what are you going to do? I mean, what do you do about that? You're going to say no and be the meanie? No, of course not. You're going to let her go. And so, there were a lot of times like that too. It just seemed unfair the whole time.
It's always unfair.
It's always unfair.
It's always unfair.
It's very
And I'm sure both parties see it as an unfair
Yeah.
relationship. I mean, divorce is never a fair relationship
Yeah.
to have. It's
And-
always lopsided in some way or another.
And it's definitely not what my daughter wanted. She wanted us together, and she said that throughout her life. She still says it.
From a child development point of view, and that's kids kind of growing up by age, year after year after year, is there a time when it's really critical that the parents pay attention to the child, spend extra time with the child, do extra things with the child? Is there kind of a learning point that the child really bonds with a parent if they do something, if they are close, if they engage in activities together or live a certain kind of lifestyle? Is there a critical time in life of a child?
Well, in my opinion, there's a couple. The first 5 years is critical.
First 5.
Okay? The first 5 years is critical for brain development. And
so what happens in the first 5 that makes that so critical?
Well, the first 5, their brains start to create. The brain is very plastic and stretchy and can heal quickly even, but it's very moldable. And so the first 5 years are crucial for brain connections, for the neurons to make pathways that are critical for foundations for the rest of their life. So being read to, being played with.
Okay, I was
having stories at night.
Some consistent lifestyle.
Definitely.
Calm lifestyle.
Yes.
Educational lifestyle. Learning lifestyle.
Read to your children. Read to them. Read to them. Read to them. It's one of the best things you can do in the first 5 years. Well, actually, their whole life, but
certainly in those first 5 years.
Certainly in the first 5 years. Yeah.
So those are critical.
Yep.
So that if you don't connect with your child in that first 5 years, you neglect the child, you're too busy, the father's not in the home, you're doing this as a single mother or a single father, you got other things that go on in your life, you spend a little time with your kid as much as you can, but not very much. What happens to those kids?
Well,
what's the
if
problem
you haven't attached with them by the time they're 3, chances are they're going to have reactive attachment disorder, and that is a lifelong disorder. There's no
age 3.
There's no cure for it, and we learned that. My wife and I adopted 3 children about 8 years ago, and right now they're 8, 9, and 10. And so they were like 10 months, 2 and 3, so maybe 7.5 years ago.
Sure.
And so if you are a foster or adoptive parent, and you've been taught through your classes that if you get a child after 3, the chances are very high that they're likely to have reactive attachment disorder. So you have to be cognizant of that and be taught how to treat that and how to take care of that.
Yeah.
So
how to bring a child under the umbrella, how to bring a child under your control, under your parenting, under your household, under your roof.
Right.
When they really don't feel that it's safe.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be stable.
And some children may feel that way the rest of their life.
Wow.
Yep. It's just the way it is. Even with 2-parent household, they may feel that way the rest of their life. They have a better chance if there's a 2-parent household after they're 3. But chances are it doesn't go away.
So if a child doesn't connect, doesn't really bond with a parent by age 3, that child's at risk. Now, that isn't hopeless, but parents have to really commit to bringing that child under control, under the umbrella, under their skirt, so to speak, and just really spend time.
Yep.
Can you spend enough time with kids like that? I mean, is it...
You really can't.
I mean, when is enough? I mean,
you really can't spend enough time with them. But you got to let them go to school, and you got to let them have their friends and things like that. But when Johnny rages because he can't have his way, which is a symptom, you got to know how to handle that. You got to know how to handle the rage. Got to know how to handle the other actions that might play out as a result of their attachment problem.
I always think of it this way: it's not so much what you do, but it's what you don't do.
Right.
You don't tell a kid, get out of here.
No.
You don't tell a kid, go to your room.
Right.
When they have an attachment disorder.
Right.
Because they don't want to be rejected.
Right.
But if you do that, if you say you're going to go to your father's, you're going to go to your mother's house, you're going to go to your grandma's house, you can go live with a neighbor, you're going to go back to the agency where you came, whatever. I mean, that just heightens that sense of rejection and fear of isolation and just being
right. There's a lot
absent.
There's a lot of foster kids these days that have what they call a go bag, and it's usually a trash bag full of clothing that they can do without for the most part, because they know that in just days or weeks they're going to have to grab that bag and disappear.
Got to go somewhere.
Got to go somewhere. So
like a security bag.
Like a security bag.
Right?
Exactly, and that's a real problem amongst the older children that are in the foster system.
So when you take on a child, let's say as a foster child, or you adopt a child, you are taking on a major commitment.
Oh, definitely.
The commitment is to commit.
Right.
Is to commit to that child.
Right.
Because you would want the child to commit to you.
Exactly.
But that child won't commit to you until you commit to the child. Is that
right.
Is that the process?
Well, that's usually the process, yes. And sometimes attachment disorders can show themselves in different ways. They can show themselves in, I don't want to attach to you.
Yes.
Or they can show themselves in, I want to be this close to you all the time. Or somebody that comes over, they don't even know. I want to be very close to you all the time. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. So there's some difference in attachments, but
want to go into the parents' bedroom at night,
at
sleep
night
with them in the bed,
exactly, which is a no-no, by the way.
But that's the attachment
Don't do
issue.
that. That's right. Don't allow the child to sleep with you in your bed. Have those boundaries. Yeah, because that's what they need. It might not be what they want, but that's what they need.
So you really are a firm believer.
I am
setting boundaries.
I'm a different parent.
I'll call them rules.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Call them whatever you want to call them, but they're different rules for what you do and what you don't do in your home and outside your home.
That's right. And I'm a different dad now than I was 35 years ago. Believe me.
Maybe a better dad than not just a
I
different dad.
I would hope to God I'm a better dad. Please, God, thank you.
But if that's a rule, you don't let the kid get in the bed with you, because now you're going to create a whole different scenario.
That's right.
What's another rule that you would have in a home where you're really working with a child that's having trouble adjusting and adapting and being independent and being comfortable?
Well, create as much space as you can with the child. Okay, not away from the child. Create as much space as you can with the child. Connect, and also not only be consistent on the boundaries and the rules, but also be consistent on the good things too. If you develop a system at night where you go in and you talk about the day at bedtime, and things are quiet and calm, and you talk about their day, and you read them a little story, and you tell them I love you, and they say I love you back, and you do that every single solitary night. Don't let go of that. Make that a ritual, and don't forget, you can say I love you. It's okay. They need to know that you love them. They need those boundaries, even though they don't want them necessarily. They need them, and they thrive for them.
Comment on this. I've often told kids that it isn't a matter of whether your mother or your dad tells you that they love you. That isn't very important. But what is important is that you believe that they love you.
Are they showing you that they love you?
Well, that's one way I gather you come to believe it. Because
if you
parents can say it, but you don't believe it, it's nothing.
If they don't show it, that's a good point. That's a good point I forgot to make. If they don't see it backed up with actions,
that's right.
Then it's just a lie. And it's just another lie.
Words and action have to fit.
They do.
Have to be consistent over time. It has to be routinely said over and over again.
That's right. And they have to also, if you've done something, if you've yelled at them, or if you misunderstood something and punished them, you have to ask for forgiveness. Just like you expect them to ask you for forgiveness when they've done something wrong. If you've done something wrong, you have to admit it. You have to be a man, be a woman,
That's right.
be the person that God wanted you to be, and ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness heals. It heals on both ends.
Let me ask you this question: if a child does not believe that the parents really love him, how can the parents convince him? I mean, here's a child that doesn't believe. I mean, how can a parent get through that and really convince the child that, yes, I really do love you, and I want you to accept that, and I want you to live that way?
There's only one way, and that's besides through a relationship with Jesus Christ. There's only one way personally, and that is to, and I say it again, be consistent no matter how long it takes. Over time, it will pay dividends. It may take a year, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years. But believe me, trust me, it will happen.
So a child will eventually accept the love of a parent.
Yes.
Foster parent, adopted parent, whatever.
Right.
But it will eventually come to be.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, if they're consistent with their actions and their words.
Yeah, but we live in a society we want it to happen now.
Yeah, can't.
I want to tell my kid I love him. We want them to accept that.
You better believe me.
Yeah, just believe me.
I say I love you. I mean it. You better believe me, or you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens more than you know.
That's the society in which we live.
That's right. So
we
it's got to be
instant. We don't want to work
instant.
at things over time. We don't want to be consistent over time.
That's right.
We just want to say it and...
We want microwave love.
Don't we ever?
Yep. So we push the button and they just know that we love them. It doesn't work like that.
Parenting is a different story today.
It is.
You were commenting about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But today it's different. You have to work at this even tougher, don't you?
Yes. Oh, it's much tougher.
You have to prove your love more. You have to be more consistent than ever.
Right.
You have to be more convincing.
Yes.
You have to be more involved. You have to be more connected, more attached.
Yes.
More involved.
Yes.
Than ever.
And a lot of it is because of what the world is today. What the world was back then is Dad went to work, Mom stayed home. Or, in my life, my mom worked, after I started kindergarten. So I was a latchkey kid.
Oh, yes.
But, back before then, Mom stayed home, Dad went to work, and Mom stayed home, took care of the kids. And Dad was vacant for a lot of the day, except for, and maybe even Dad worked during the weekend.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories and history to back that up. And so they raised a different child than we're raising now.
That's right.
Because the fathers now, young fathers now, don't want to work. They want everything to be good, consistently happy, and no negative to happen. Wow. Okay, and they don't know how to handle negatives.
That's why they want it not to be negative. Because they don't know how to handle that.
They don't know how to handle it.
They don't know how to handle stress. They don't know how to handle disappointment.
Right.
How to handle hurt.
Right.
How to handle anger. Somebody else's anger.
Yeah. I teach a class called Emotional Intelligence. And emotional intelligence mostly teaches you in 4 areas in self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship. How to respond to things that are happening to or around you or said to you. It's basically 99% is how you react to things.
Absolutely.
Right? And 1% is what happens.
That's right.
So emotional intelligence can teach adults how to become better people so that they can be better parents.
Well, I've written a book on that topic.
I know.
Emotional intelligence,
wonderful.
and you teach that topic. So
That's
I'll tell you
right.
what we're going to do.
Okay.
We're going to take a little break.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about emotional intelligence a little bit and how that plays a role in the parenting process of our kids today. We got to teach them what we call to be intelligent emotionally.
Yes.
Some people call it street smart. But we'll take a look at that in just a minute. So get a cup of coffee and see you in a few minutes.
dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Hey! Try to close the club.
Tanya, come here. At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps.
4
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
All right, welcome back as we conclude our program today in the last segment of Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Our expert today is Eric Lindberg, who is a child development specialist, teaches child development at Fresno Pacific University. And today he's guiding us through some thinking about the parenting of young children and effective parenting and good parenting, if you will. But before the break, Eric, we just started talking about the issue of emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. A very important issue to teach children, a series of topics, a series of behavior patterns, a series of attitudes, a series of ways of thinking to teach children.
Yes. And
you teach a class on that topic. Mm-hmm. The book that I wrote is Living Life at Its Best.
Wonderful.
And Living Life at Its Best is just a nice little book. It takes all the different aspects of emotional intelligence and puts it out into a brief form, gives an example, mm-hmm. and then leads you through a series of questions.
Right.
So how do you do this? I mean, what do you teach when you think in terms of emotional intelligence? What do you want your student teachers, if you will,
right.
to know? Because they're going to carry that on to the kids in their
right.
classrooms, and then obviously to the parents that they
right.
have.
Well, it's different in teaching teachers how to teach it in their classroom is different than teaching adults in how to have it or raise their EQ or emotional quotient, right? So teaching teachers is all about activities and mm-hmm. having the children very involved in what you're doing. Yeah. So it's responses on what happens when somebody cheats, or what happens when somebody lies, or what happens when somebody is wronged in some way. It's also about the good aspects of ourselves mm-hmm. and bringing out the confidence in ourselves that we should have, and knowing what we would do in any circumstance.
Sure.
So in teaching children, it's all about the activities and what we teach in teachers is how to do the activities.
You know, when I was writing this book, I said to myself, the very important thing that every single child needs to learn, mm-hmm. and every parent needs to teach, mm-hmm. is empathy.
Yes.
How to be considerate of others, but to feel the feelings of others.
Right.
You know, when you hurt their feeling, when brother hits little brother or sister, there's a feeling there. Mm-hmm. And a child has to learn how to be empathetic, how to feel that feeling mm-hmm. that he caused or created. Mm-hmm. Kids need to know how other people feel. And when they can feel as other people feel, They get to know their own feelings,
Right.
but they'll treat each other better.
Right. It's really hard before the age of 5 or 6 to have empathy.
Yeah, it's about a 7-year-old is what I think. Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
They knock a child down,
Mhm.
okay, accidentally, but they keep on going.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the child they knock down. It could be brother, sister, could be friend, and crying. And so an adult comes over and picks the child up. What happened? Well, Johnny tripped me when he was going by, and he didn't even say he was sorry or anything.
Yeah.
He didn't even. Well, it's really hard for a child under 7, you know, under 5 or 6,
Yeah.
to have empathy.
Yeah, they don't have
but
it.
they need to be given the example, and they need it modeled on what should happen.
You start the process.
Yes, you
That
start
there is
the
such a thing
process.
as empathy.
That's right. So
I mean, you don't tell them that word, but that idea.
ask them how would you feel
Yeah,
if
that's it.
you know, how would you feel if
Somebody did that to you.
somebody did that to you? Well, somebody did that to me the other day, and they didn't stop or anything.
Yeah.
And so, how did you feel when that happened? And get them to explain that. Get
Yeah.
them to
Yeah.
model that through their words of how they felt.
Yeah. When I was writing this book, I also thought the idea of responsibility is a very critical trait or skill or attitude or attribute that you want your children to learn. Now, to me, you know, responsibility start out with like you take the garbage out, right?
Right.
You know, a child at age 3 starts chores.
Right.
It's age 3.
Yep.
That's where they start chores. That's where you start teaching responsibility.
That's right.
Help me out with that. How do you teach that?
You teach that by saying, take these forks and go over and put them on the table where everybody's going to sit. Okay? Very good for a 3-year-old. Very easy to understand for
That's
a
right.
3-year-old. Okay? You take these spoons. Don't give them the knives yet. Take these spoons. Go put them where everybody's at. Okay? If they're paper plates or unbreakable plates, take these plates and go set them where everybody's going to sit. It doesn't matter where they put them. Okay? Don't freak out. Don't be obsessive. It doesn't matter where they put them at the place setting. Okay? Like the knife on the left and the 2 forks on the right, or whatever. I don't even know if that's the right way. But it just matters that they were able to do it. So something easy like that. Okay, I want you to go in your room and I want you to pick everything up off the floor and put it on the bed. And then Daddy's going to come in and help you sort it. And then we're going to sort it. Okay, that's very easy for a 3 or 4-year-old to understand. Okay, and then as they get older, I mean, our kids are 7, 8, 9, and 10 now, and they're helping out with everything except mowing the yard. Just about everything except mowing the yard. And my middle son, who's a kind of a control freak, he likes to do everything Dad does. So he could. I'll bet you he could mow the yard just fine. But I'm not going to let him yet, of course. But he probably could.
So emotional intelligence is kind of learning some of these basic skills.
Yes.
But the attitude that goes with it.
Yes.
And that you're serving.
Yes.
You're helping.
Servanthood is a big part of it.
You're contributing. You're participating. You're sharing. I mean, that's the concept of emotional intelligence.
Yes. How can you have empathy if you haven't been a servant before in that subject? It's almost impossible. So you have to be a servant. The first will be last. I'm trying to teach my kids that right now. That you have to be a servant. Now, part of that, trick them a little bit and say, if you're a servant, you're the hero. Now, how does that work?
Cute. Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
When you're the hero, I'm the hero when I'm the leader and I can jump tall buildings. No, you're a hero when you're a servant, and so you want to be a servant, and then you'll be looked upon as a hero.
Is that helping others?
Yes.
Serving others.
Yes.
You know, being a contributor to others.
Exactly.
Helping others.
Yep.
And boy, that is heroism.
Yes, absolutely.
Very interesting way of defining that, by the way.
Yeah.
Because we have this whole idea that really the hero,
right,
is the strong guy.
The Avengers.
Yeah.
Marvel comics and all that stuff.
One other one that I was very impressed with as I was writing the book, and that is being able to be assertive in communication. Speak up.
Right.
Tell what you think.
Yes.
Tell how you feel.
That's
Tell
right.
what you want.
That's right.
Ask questions.
Yep.
Answer questions.
What happens if you don't?
Be part of the dialogue.
Right. If you don't, there's consequences to that.
Oh.
Okay. So
enormous.
somebody who has social awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. Walks in a room and reads the room, doesn't know anybody, but knows how to behave in the room. Okay. A project is being started. Sit back, listen, and then participate. Be a servant if you can. Somebody with a lack of social awareness will do just the opposite.
Sure.
Come into the room, not be aware of themselves, want to take over right away, want to be boisterous, try and make friends that way, when exactly the opposite happens. So that's what we need to do, is show in the 4 areas that Bradbury wrote in Emotional Intelligence 2.0. He shows what is it when you have a high emotional quotient and social awareness, and how does that look? And then also, how does it look when you have a low EQ and social awareness? And that's what I love about that book, because it shows exactly what it looks like if you have it and what it looks like if you don't. If you have a high score,
the opposite of assertiveness is being passive.
Right.
Just being quiet and not getting your needs met. Nobody knows you. Nobody knows what you think. Nobody knows what you want. Nobody knows what you would hope for. So you're passed up.
Exactly.
You're overlooked.
Right.
I mean, that's the opposite of being assertive.
In many ways, and it could be a detriment to you.
Enormous detriment.
Physically, emotionally, mentally.
Why would you want to raise a kid?
Right.
To not speak.
Right.
To just listen or to just be there, but not participate or not contribute.
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
Right. You wouldn't want to do that, number one. And number two,
kids, parents do.
Right. You have to teach them how to speak respectfully and when to speak. So and to whom to speak to. So if Johnny wrongs you, okay, and you want to lash out right away, hold that in and don't scream at Johnny. Just say, Johnny, that hurt my feelings. If Johnny doesn't make it right, okay, go to the teacher. Say, teacher, Johnny treated me this way and it hurt my feelings. And then the teacher will help you rectify that, okay, and make it right. That's what we say to our kids. You have to make it right.
I was working with an 8-year-old the other day, counseling in my program, and this kid was really mad at angry at his father. Really, really angry. His father had done some things that were not so appropriate, and the kid was angry. So he really talks about how mad he was at the father and the things he would say to the father and say about the father, and they were just horrendously bad statements. So here I was trying to say to him, look, that's how you feel. But express that in just a little bit softer tone, because your dad will hear that.
Right.
But when you yell and scream and cuss and all, your dad's not going to hear that, and it's not going to help you at all.
That's right.
So how do you, I guess, help kids express their feelings, but yet do it in a respectful way, as you said?
Well, it's all about being able to control your inside. It's all about being able to control
That's what it is.
that person inside that wants to lash out, and being able to for them to know the consequences of what happens when they do lash out, okay, and letting them know that the good consequences of not lashing out and handling it the right way are much more goodies.
Kids lash out. That's the thing that is about kids.
Yep.
They don't have that control, that kind of impulse control.
Yep. And being consistent when the child lashes out, being consistent with the consequences. If you're the adult in the situation, you're the teacher, or you're the mom and dad, being consistent with the consequences, being consistent with the house rules. We don't allow this in this classroom. We don't allow this behavior in our household. And then the punishment for that is...
See, I'm concerned about how adults today speak out and are pretty scrappy. How they speak to each other and some of the expressions.
Sporting events and things like that.
And on television and in various places that you hear this awful talk. But then kids hear that and then they repeat that.
I think that's the way.
I mean, you're giving an example of you want your kids to talk like that?
Yeah. I had an example of my daughter came home, and she's the youngest, and she came home and said, today, Dad, so-and-so said that their parents were split up, and my mom says that my dad's a real jerk. And so the kids pick up on that, okay? Mom may have said that in another room, maybe on the phone to a friend.
And then your kids, you start using that language.
That's what they're
And
modeling.
it's much more colorful than that word.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that's how kids learn their language.
That's right.
Is from what they hear us say.
Right. And then if my kids pick up a word at school and they bring it home and they say it, then that's a lesson for them. That's a life lesson that I'm going to teach them of what is maybe vulgar or just impolite to say.
Yeah.
And so why is it vulgar, Dad? Well, let me tell you why it's vulgar. And so then the explanation comes and I'm not going to punish you now, but if you say it again,
then
these would be the consequences. Yeah.
Eric, we have a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What would you advise parents today? What are the 2 or 3 things that a parent really must do as you view parenting, as you view these kids and their needs today and our culture today, and you say, okay, to address this, here's what a parent really needs to commit to and do. What would you say? What's your advice?
When we adopted the kids and the judge slammed down the gavel and said, okay, you are responsible for these kids. You're responsible for their lives. You're responsible for what goes on in their lives. You're responsible for what happens to them. You are their parent for the rest of their life. And this was 3 at one time, right? We were only counting on 1. This was 3.
Yep.
So through their life, before they're 5, a lot of reading, a lot of colors, a lot of books, a lot of playtime, okay? You have to commit the time. From now until they're 18, you have to commit the time. This time in their life is for you, okay? This is your time with them. So after they're 5, then comes the time at school when they're at school and supporting them in their homework and supporting them with their teacher.
Yeah.
And we communicate with their teachers every day, either by text or by phone. Okay, they know us. Our teachers know us. They go to a Sycamore Valley Academy and they know us.
You want to create the team.
Yeah.
The team idea.
That's right.
Your parent, the teacher.
And the principal.
Yeah, your
we
team.
all know each other.
So when a kid can separate you by saying, you can't talk to my teacher.
Right. No,
or my teacher can't talk to my parent, then anything
That's
can
right.
happen.
We take a picture of something that somebody brought home and send it to the teacher via text and say, is he supposed to bring this home? And she'll either say yes or no. Depending on the answer is how we respond to it.
There you are. So it becomes a teamwork.
Yes.
So parents have to kind of really see that they are not alone in this.
That's right.
We started out with the single mother,
right?
The single father who's trying to raise their kid as a single parent. You're not alone.
No.
You can include the teacher.
That's right.
You can include your minister.
That's
you can
right.
include your youth worker. You can include a Sunday school teacher.
Absolutely.
You can include a neighbor. You can include grandparents. You can include uncles
Take the time
friends
to be involved.
I mean, you got to create your team.
Yep. You've got those kids till they're 18, 20 years old, and maybe even more.
And the team changes over time.
Team changes over time.
The players come and go.
The one consistency is you.
Yeah.
And so you've got to dedicate your time to them. And then when you're retired and you guys are empty nesters, like some of my friends at work are empty nesters, God bless them. I didn't expect at 56 to have kids, but you know what? My wife and I decided that we needed to do this, and so we did, and we're so glad we did. It's keeping me young, I'll tell you that.
That's a model to some of our parents
That's
out there.
a model to
this
some
might
of
be
your
a good
parents.
opportunity
That's
for a parent
right.
out there to go out and adopt. It's
Go
a great
out
option.
That's right. Go out and adopt or foster adopt. Absolutely.
Okay, let me give you a quote. I want you to comment about this quote as well. We start with a quote. I want to end with a quote. And it's about parenting and children, obviously. Parents train their children on how to train their children later on.
Right. So you model how you want them to behave when they're older. And one of the sayings that I have with my children when I punish them is I say, what am I trying to do? And my sons will say, you're trying to make a good man. And that's exactly what I say to them.
That's what you're trying to do.
And my daughter, I'm trying to make a good woman. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to do.
I'd
is
go
raise
even
good
further.
men and good
Your
women.
daughter, you're trying to not only make a good woman out of her,
a good wife,
you're trying to make a good mother, a good wife out of her,
right?
So that she will be a good mother to her
That's
children.
right, and a good husband.
And then you're passing that on.
Yep, and a good father, and absolutely.
And on down we go.
Yep, I want my children to model my behavior when
Yes.
they're my age. Well, maybe not when they're my age.
That's
when they're a little bit younger and they have
That's
kids.
a big challenge.
Yeah,
to you.
right. No kidding.
You got to do the right thing.
No kidding. No kidding.
Anyway, Hayden, thanks for being with us today.
You're very welcome. My
This
pleasure.
has been a great discussion with Eric Lindberg, Fresno Pacific University Child Development Specialist. And you want to get a hold of him, there's information on the screen there as how you connect with Eric. But otherwise, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
When I set foot on the campus to come visit it, I was struck by how open and how welcoming the students and the professors were. Coming to Gordon was like coming home.
I think intentional community is what Jesus modeled with his disciples, and Gordon has really fostered a good place for intentional community to happen.
Gordon is a place where you can meet people from all over the world and hear their stories. I meet a lot of different people who are shaping who I am today.
Gordon seeks to graduate men and women of character, of leadership, and the world is the place where Gordon students belong.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I expect to be changed.